Ladies and gents, welcome back. We do this once a week, but this time it's on the heels of a cabinet shuffle, and we actually know who has been shuffled around now. So why don't we just get into this? Marty Up North, welcome back. Let's do this.
Hey, Clyde. How's it going? Yeah, we called this one, right? We nailed it. I mean, when did we start talking about a cabinet shuffle? I'm going to say we started talking about this about 6 weeks ago.
It's been a while.
We'd
yeah.
heard, yeah.
Rumors were in the rumor mill, and it was, but
and as you've pointed out many times, leaks are not leaks, right? I mean,
it's intentional. They put that out to the media. Leaks that do happen, actually, they end up in police investigations, as we've seen in recent times, where the leakers are investigated. That's when you know it's a real
see how
leak.
this is going to come around full circle today. We're going to come back.
Okay,
to that
we might come back to that one, but
we might
so we have a list.
One,
we have a list, and this one here is courtesy of Tracy Wilson on Twitter. She's given us a complete list of all the people who have been shown. This is massive, right? Look how many have moved around in the Liberal Party.
It's massive. And before getting into it deeply, let's, it is some people are trying to say it's just a cabinet shuffle. I mean, at the high level, looking at Tracy's list and my list, there's roughly 35 cabinet or ministries in Canada, and it shuffles, right? It's not like they're fixed in stone. So each government can have however ministries they want. So there's roughly 35. Out of the 35 that we currently have, 7 got brand new ministers. So 7 ministers lost their cabinet posts and were replaced. So those 7 cabinet ministers, most of them announced that they weren't running in the next election. So that makes sense that they're not going to get a cabinet.
Omar Algebra, he was not running.
Omar,
a bunch of them. He
Mendocino.
wasn't. So he wasn't one of the ones that was older, that was just too old to run in the next election, and that's understandable. You're about to retire. You're not going to promise to run in another
he's
election.
Not too old. I mean, he ran. He's been in Parliament for at least 11, 12 years, and I think he's one of those guys. We're going to get back to this one where, with all this investigation into the Chinese interference and things like that, I mean, he's not borderline. I'll say it. He's incompetent. Personally, I can't think of a minister that did more damage to me personally than Omar did. His policies around ArriveCan and vaccine mandates and passport offices and all that crap. I mean, he really mismanaged his portfolio, and he did a lot of, damage to me. So I'm glad to see him gone. I think he's just getting out of politics. I don't know what the hell he's going to go do next, but I think we are hearing rumors that there are people being investigated for the Chinese interference, and stuff's going to come out. So Omar is one of those.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 7 that are leaving. Mendocino, I'm glad he's leaving. I mean, he's announcing he's leaving again. He's done for me personally with his bill C-21, the gun grab, and his incompetence there, and the constant lying that he's done, and his involvement in the Emergency Measures Act and stuff like that. I mean, these are guys that mismanaged COVID and the pandemic, and now they're getting out or are being pushed out. I guess we'll find out in the coming weeks what's going on.
Well, with what you missed one thing about Mendocino, and that's the recent revelations of his wife having stocks in a war profiteering, essentially, company, a company that's making money hand over fist because of our investments in the Ukraine.
Yeah, absolutely. And then and Lemedi, he's another one I didn't really like at all. He was
is he out or has he just been shuffled?
He's out. He's out, and he's announcing that he's not running again.
Oh, so okay, he's out.
He's out, and he was.
I know I've not been a fan of Lemedi. The coverage of the inquiry into the Emergencies Act, that him joking around with Omar Algebra about having a Tiananmen Square moment. How many tanks do we need? That kind of thing. On an official
illegality of and he's supposed to be our. I keep saying our Attorney General. I don't know what our title is. He's our
Justice Minister.
Minister of Justice, and I think he did not uphold the Constitution and things that I think he should have been doing. So he's out.
He was on camera saying, because he was asked about measures for seizing property, and he said this. He said, Canadians don't have a fundamental right to
Right to
property.
property.
And
Totally.
that is a legal sentiment that well, I just
And
cannot get behind, and I don't think we need that kind of thing in the
and in a
government.
roundabout way, is he not the one also who recently said that the provinces don't have rights to their minerals and to their resources? I think he might have even said something along those lines. So
He was talking to an indigenous group, and he mentioned something about I'm not I don't know the
a
exact
UN
cause.
Act or something like,
Well, they were
yeah.
talking about the UN Act, but then they got into mineral rights and that between the provinces and the federal government. He basically said that they were going to open the door when it doesn't look like they want to open the door, or maybe they want to open the door, but it's not politically expedient to say something like that
Yeah.
publicly anyway.
Yeah, and then Carolyn Bennett left. She's been an MP for a very long time. Her record's okay, and I think she's probably the only one who's genuinely just saying, "Hey, I've had it. I've more than tripled my pension. It's safe, and I'm getting out." I mean, some of these guys, like you and I know this. They do their 6 years or 8 years, get their pension, and then bugger out. So 7 are gone, but then out of the 30 cabinet shuffles, that means that 23 are recycled, and so 23 just shifted from one ministry, from one post to another.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that's the part that I find a bit ridiculous. I mean, the Liberals don't have a huge depth of bench, but they still have a bench. I mean, they still have 160 MPs, and you keep telling me that out of the 160 MPs, you're recycling the same 25 into ministries over and over and over,
Mm-hmm.
and not bringing. There is no talent. I mean, if I worked in the private sector my whole life, if a company I work for suddenly said, "Hey, we're reorganizing," because the shareholders demanded it, we'd reorganize. But if the outcome of the reorganization is that Fred, who managed the North, now manages the South, Bob, who managed the South, now manages the North, Charlie is now in charge of finance, and Larry's in charge of HR, and it's the same 4 guys, our shareholders would say, "Bullshit, that's not a reorganization." So I guess the term here is a shuffle, because that's all they've done. I mean, they just moved the chairs on the deck and brought in 7 new faces, 7 rookies. I looked them up. I have no idea who these rookies are. I mean, they have no, and again, I'm surprised because I can think of a few MPs that do have potential, but they didn't bring any of them. So who gets tapped on the shoulder to be a minister? I think.
Well, when you got to give that many people the boot, that's it's drawing at straws, right? They're just reaching for anybody at this point.
They're drawing at straws, but I mean, a couple of things come to mind. I mean, they used to, being a minister was a bit of a reward, so you gave that to your loyal lieutenants, and they stayed in there. It was also a boost in money, so you'd tap somebody on the shoulder and give them an extra money, but obviously, in this go around, Trudeau's not feeling confident enough to do that. He's not spreading the goodies to some new people. He's just keeping his old people, but just shifting him around, which is like, wow, what an interesting strategy. Like Mendocino couldn't sell the gun grab, is what he was trying to do. Bill Blair couldn't sell the whatever the hell he was trying to sell. Anand couldn't reform the military. So they're just shifting them around. But at the end of the day, between you and I don't think they're interested in really trying to make any real reform at this point. They're just shifting the chairs on the deck so that the attention gets given to new people under new portfolios. And a handful of people, I'm going to have to look into the 7 new people that got
well, you brought up Bill Blair, and I just thought him in charge of the Department of National Defense. I mean, when he was in charge of the police in Toronto, they had the most egregious thing go down under anybody's watch under the police of Toronto, and there was the G20 summit where they kettled, I think is the term that they use, all the protesters there, and it was a big issue. I think they had to apologize for that years later after the fact. But yeah, now he's in charge of the biggest force in Canada. He's in charge of the Department of National Defense. This is, I mean, what are these choices? What are they doing?
They're not doing much. I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, well the other guy that's complete failure is that Pablo Rodriguez. They took him away after we laughed about it because of Bill C-18. He has Bill C-11 that he was. It's a debacle. But he was a complete failure, and it's a laughing stock of the world now as the Trudeau government pushed it with Pablo Rodriguez to try to police the world conglomerate social media sites as a total embarrassment. And now he's in charge of what Omar Algebra was in charge of for. He's a transport minister.
Yeah, and I mean, as a departure, as a parting whatever commentary, they're leaving and they're doing a tweet. They're tweeting, hey, I'd like to thank my Trudeau for giving me the opportunity. I've been the minister of X, and they're able to list their accomplishments of the last 3 years in a 130-character tweet. I mean, some of these guys haven't done anything. Like, yeah, what does Pablo Rodriguez claim to fame? Thank you for the opportunity, the once in a lifetime privilege to have been whatever the culture minister. I passed Bill C-18.
And not to mention C-11. C-11. He's
yes.
He tried to censor the internet. Thanks a lot. Good job.
So there's a shuffle, and then of course we should talk. There's to the best of my knowledge, about 3 or 4 that didn't move, stayed the same. So Minister Joly stays as foreign minister. Freeland stays as finance minister. Guilbeault, God, I was hoping Guilbeault would move. And everybody, I made a tweet with my predictions, and everybody said I was wrong on my.
He was made for that part.
He was tapped on the shoulder to run to be that role. I mean, he became minister the day he got elected. Yeah. So, wishful thinking on my part. I think deep down I knew he was going to stay there. I mean, those are 3 of the most incompetent as far as I'm concerned, and they're staying there. So back to the question then. So what's your thoughts then? Why the shuffle today, this week, Clyde? I mean, we've talked about it, but are we still on the same page as to why there was a shuffle this week?
I think we might be on the opposite page because of what we were talking about before we went live here. So I think it was a complete embarrassment. So some of these guys had to go. So Marco Mendicino had to go. Lametti had to go. Algebra was like, I want to go. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. Some people want to rid themselves of the liability because, well, Trudeau's government is a liability. Maybe that's what Dave Lametti's position was on that one. But as for Mendicino, they wanted him out probably as much as he wanted to be out, if he wanted to be out at all. That's for sure. And they're giving up a big opportunity to get him out too, right? Because of his riding. It is an opportunity for the Conservatives to come in and take that riding because they backbenched him if they were to have an election soon. So that is a liability for them getting rid of him. So I think it's that much of an embarrassment. Now, you were getting into the fact that
I think we are kind of on the same point. I mean, he got rid of embarrassments. I kind of thought for a while there, about 5 weeks ago, I thought that Trudeau that these things were so embarrassing, the mismanagement of C-18 and C-21. I thought he was going to actually prorogue Parliament and instead of just going to a summer session and then have the bills die because they were so poorly worded and so mismanaged. But I guess in the end he passed them, he lived with them, but now he's going to, I don't know if I'd say punish the people who brought these ministers, but he's going to bring in people to try and save face on those bills. So whoever's got to take over C-21, C-18, all those things, they still have to push them and make them popular in a way, because even though they've been passed, they're not quite law yet. So I agree that it's a form of getting rid of embarrassing people. But I also think he's getting ready for an election. I think. He still has 2 years to his term, so Trudeau could go until well into summer 2025. We could go 2 whole years without an election. But looking at factors like the economy, the price, the inflation, housing, things like that, I think it's just going to be bad news after bad news after bad news, and it's going to be hard for the Liberals to campaign on their record in the coming year. And I think if they wait 2 years, that election is done. So if Trudeau wants to stay in power, I think he does have to call an election, kind of like he did during COVID, sometime between now and Christmas. and this is not very long, but I think he can put these ministers in there. We're going to hear about some of them during the summer. We're going to have a bit of a restart in August, September, and then I think he's going to call an election. So I think we're not disagreeing, but we're agreeing for maybe slightly different reasons. But I think
maybe we are
the shuffle.
Maybe we are disagreeing because so I'm looking at this maybe a little bit differently. I mean, to your point about getting rid of the embarrassments, I think first off, there's the number one king ding embarrassment, and that would be Trudeau. But obviously he's not going to shuffle himself out. But that being said, I think an election could be not in his interest for Trudeau, because and I understand the way the polling is going right now. If they were to have an election today, it looks like Trudeau would have a minority again, and just by the polling, right? So you'd have a minority again, and then the NDP could boost him into a majority with their totally not a coalition agreement. And then they could keep going with what it is that they're going with. But if you look at it realistically, the Conservatives are coming out and they are winning over Liberal voters. They're winning over Conservative NDP voters. They're doing this at the detriment of a lot of Conservative voters. People who maybe aren't Conservatives, but lean towards what the Conservative platform is and what Conservative people have been saying in the culture, and watching Pierre Poilievre walk back and not support things on his side of the aisle while catering to all the other people on the other side of the aisle. But the way I'm looking at it here is, if Trudeau tries to jump into an election, it's a massive risk. He has a guaranteed power until 2025, which he could lose. He could lose this, and he'll never get it back. Like, that's never coming back once it's lost. And he's really on borrowed time at this point. So
and if he's already thought he's going to lose, why wouldn't you stay in power?
Yeah,
right?
And that's it.
But that said, he's not. I don't think he's the only guy who makes that decision. I mean, it's not even the caucus; it's this big machine behind him. So obviously, the big machine behind him still has some faith in him. He still has some money raising value, because to me, that's the only value this man has at this point for the Liberal Party, is the ability to keep bringing in cash.
Yes, that's true. That is true.
Quick segue into something. There was a by-election on Monday. We didn't talk about it, but just 3 days ago, there was a by-election. So Calgary Heritage, we had the 4 by-elections back in June there. I can't remember the one in Winnipeg and it played. So we had another quick one, kind of under the radar, happened on Calgary Heritage, which was a very strong Conservative stronghold. It stayed Conservative. So it didn't even shift in any way, shape, or form. Kind of like the last by-election, the Conservative, a guy named Chevaloy, he just goes by the name of Shove Majumdar. He got 65% of the vote, so he's a Conservative. So it stayed Conservative. The Liberals put in a guy named Elliot Weinstein, and Elliot's campaign backfired on him. We could maybe talk about that. Elliot was remember the gentleman with the green T-shirt at the Stampede with the who shook hands.
I kind of alluded to it just briefly a moment ago.
Yeah. So Elliot tried to use that and saying, I'm not going to run a negative campaign. And I think what they did was ugly and so forth. And people didn't buy his crap. People basically in Calgary said,
I know that guy. I think I saw that clip. And
yeah,
it's just people are sick of it. People are sick of hearing that stuff. He said it was a message of hate. And
he said it was a message of hate, and people said, no, it's not. It's just a guy wearing a T-shirt. In fact, I have a friend who's, I won't give her his name. I have a trans friend who got that T-shirt made and is walking around with that T-shirt.
Oh, that's really funny.
So I'll share the link to that. That's really cool. Trans engineering friend sharing that T-shirt. So
too good.
So in that by-election, the Liberals and the NDP each got 14%, so they couldn't even split the vote. And me, got to poke a little bit of fun at Maxime. Max got 649 votes. So the PPC candidate, and they've tried to put in a really strong PPC
not Max
candidate,
himself, but another candidate.
No, he couldn't run because it was too. it was within a month since the one in Winnipeg, so he couldn't present himself as a candidate. They put another candidate, and the poor guy got 3% of the vote. So for the
Poor.
PPC, yeah, not a good showing. But again, just to your point, right now, the by-elections, all 5 of the recent by-elections stayed exactly the same. There was no seat shifting. So I think you're right. If Trudeau did call an election, that's something I hadn't thought of. Would it still be a minority government?
It looks that way. If they won,
Yeah.
it looks that way. It's pretty tight. But I just having a laugh because like you mentioned the PPC, and I think this came up in another conversation with someone earlier this week as we were talking about the PPC, and I've always had high hopes for the PPC. I do like the platform, and I've had Maxime on the show a few times. I like what he has to say. A lot of the things that he brings forward. When asking him about the vote split, he says, "Don't worry about it. I'm not a vote splitting candidate. I'm not doing this stuff." But then realistically, there's a perfect opportunity for the PPC to go run in ridings where they typically win NDP or win Liberal. With all the disaffected Liberals at this point and disaffected NDP voters, he has a perfect opportunity to bring his party up in those regions, but he keeps running against Conservatives, and it's like, what is it? Are you trying to vote split? Are you not trying to vote split? Why is it that you always run in areas that you're
you're talking about regions like there's a couple of mainland BC spots.
British Columbia would be a perfect
or northern Alberta or northern Ontario would be another good, go into the Timmins Thunder Bay area and run there and try and take one away from the NDP. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'd be for that. I think that would be a great concept.
No, I agree too. I do think I like some of Max's ideas. I really do. I'm not a big fan of Max himself, and I'm really not a big fan of his strategy to get elected,
it's not working out. It's not working out so far. That's for sure. But that's where we're at.
Do you want to segue ever so slightly into the fact? I hinted that things in the next couple of years are going to get bad for Canadians. I think
the members of Parliament moving around, and one of them in particular is not, and that's the finance minister not moving around is a perfect segue. Because this one I'm gonna have to just start with this, and this is the thing that she had to say on Twitter. So this is Chrystia Freeland herself on Twitter saying Canada's plan to bring down inflation is working. They believe that they're actually doing a good job on the front of what it is. And my argument is you can't just cook the numbers and then expect reality to change around you. So yeah, we have
and I asked, based on that tweet, I asked a couple of questions too, like give me an example of something you've done. Like what have you done? Because giving food stamps to somebody is not a measure that reduces inflation. It makes it easier to handle inflation. I think it's going to make it worse. But
I saw the reply saying we don't have food stamps in Canada. Whatever. That's conjecture. But I did reply. I did reply to this saying the cost of food purchased from grocery stores in Canada increased by 9.1% annually in June, while they were saying this is down to 2.8%. Meat went up 6.9%. Bakery products went up 12.9%. Dairy products 7.4%. Fresh fruit 10.4%. But things like that Canadians don't need as much, like cell phones, fell, bringing the CPI down. And this is where they cook the books. They cook it by they changed the CPI number.
Well, I'll show you how. Just stay on that page real quick. So, when I see data like that, me personally, I want to be able to discuss the data. So last week, I went on a little quest to try and find how the government calculates and comes up with the 2.8, and I had a very hard time finding really good information. So that sends warning signals to me when I'm trying to look up for information and I can't find it. I know, then I really start to question. Another example of me personally over the years where I've always struggled is, you ever look up the formula for equalization and transfer payments? You'll never find it. Like the government loves to talk about it, but they don't want you to be able to analyze it. So I think
Yeah.
the CPI is one of those
Well,
examples.
here's a good indicator. So in the rate proposed communities notes, when you pop up the
Yeah.
communities notes, the first note that pops up is CPI, or inflation, is calculated differently between the countries, making a direct comparison between country figures misleading. For example, Canada and the United States use different calculations, so the basket of goods are different between the two countries, which produce a higher inflation rate for the US. It's based on the numbers, but they just keep changing them anyway. So year to year even is
Even the
difficult.
Canadian government, you'll often find pages on the Canadian government websites. Budget's another example where they'll talk about, they'll put notes and say we changed the way we calculate this, and so making a comparison with previous years difficult. But I shared with you the CPI that I found for Alberta. If you want to put that up for the viewers,
This
real
one here,
quick.
yeah.
Yeah, so when I was digging, happily my home province has good information on the CPI index, and then scroll down a little bit to the one that shows next one down, the one that shows the basket of goods. So I was able to find, back to your point, I was able to find something that sort of shows, no, not sort of, in very good detail, the Alberta government shows their basket of good. Now, these things are almost weighed identically, and I think that's another thing that's incorrect. So if you look on the far right, you got food, and as you pointed out, far left, you got food. Food went up 10%.
Well, 7.9 here.
7.9, but then the government in their basket of goods weighs food and energy, give it the same weighing.
Yeah.
But energy
17.1% down, they show here,
which is kind of a fluke, because the price of gasoline exactly a year ago was so high that when they do this, is a year over year difference. So now it's gonna.
It was $2. It was over $2 in British Columbia last year. So I mean,
absolutely. So that's that's fine. That's the math. That's correct. So energy did go down. But what I have a bit of a point with, or an issue with, is that energy as the weighing in the CPI shouldn't be the same as food, because a family might spend, let's say, $10,000-$15,000 on food, but the same family only spends $25,000 to $3,000 a year on gasoline. I mean, we like to bitch about the price of gasoline, but the reality is, if you have two cars and you drive them each 15,000 kilometers, you do 30,000 kilometers a year. And if you do whatever, 22 kilometers or 22 liters per 100 kilometers, I'm going to do the math. You're going to burn 2,000 liters. You're going to burn $4,000 of gas.
Yeah.
So it's not the same amount as what I mean, look at what's on the left. Food purchased outside of stores, same thing. That basket can't be the same as the food consumed at home. Are you telling me we eat in restaurants as much as? And then healthcare. Oh,
yeah.
You brought up a funny point. Look at the one far on the right. Communications.
Yeah, communications.
What does a household spend on communications?
Well, that's the thing. So the price of cell phones dropped 14% in Canada.
But then I just defeated my argument. Actually, if communication is the same basket and the same weighing as some of the other ones, then it would help, because we don't spend a lot of communications. I'm talking to myself, but
no. So, well, here's the point, right? So cell phones, you're not buying a new cell phone every day. You're not buying new cell phones all the time. You might buy a new cell phone every 2, 3, 5 years, depending on the person and what your needs are. But these products are not like an everyday item. And if the price of cell phones drop by 14%, I mean, that's not huge anyway. And not everybody's buying brand new when they buy their cell phones anyway. So a lot of people are buying from the used market. So it's not really that impactful as much as it's represented on the CPI here. And here, communications, I think in this, they add together with providers, cellular providers,
your television, your internet provider at home,
stuff,
and things like
your
that.
Disney Plus for Christy Freeland's family. It went down, so you can probably get it back.
But it's a good website, and it's the kind of, I do encourage people, go look at that thing, give it some thought. When the government says that inflation's only 2.8%, do the math in your head, folks. I mean, you're spending 25% of your household budget on the items on the left, on food and on rent. Look at rent. They got rent in the middle. I can't see rent being
it's a lot more than 4.6% off. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
And some of us are locked into into our rentals, and for us, you know, that's a godsend. But like for most people, if you have to go find a new rental, you're not gonna be getting it for only 4.6% more than your last rental. It's
no.
and only if you're downsizing massively.
You'll be lucky to get a 5% increase if you're staying in the same place and you're renewing. We lived it with my daughter. She got pushed out. I'm pretty sure that's what her landlord was trying to do. He said he was putting up the place for sale, so then he was able to use that as a valid reason to give her 90 days notice. And now she's out of that old place. I'm sure if I go back and look, the place isn't sold. He's not going to sell the place. He's just going to take the for sale sign down and put somebody else in that place and increase the rent by 15%. He couldn't increase the rent on my daughter by more than 5% by law or whatever it is. But by playing a game like that, he was able to do it. There's no way rent is going up by 5% in a city like Calgary or Vancouver. It's going up by way more than that.
Way up.
Way more.
People are saying that, you know, rent, you know, landlords are gouging, but landlords have mortgages too, and landlords are buying these properties. And I know a friend who bought a property. He ended up having to move to another town, so he wanted to just rent it, and he put it up for breaking even price, like 1 month, you know, no tenant, and he's paying out of pocket kind of thing. And it was, at the time, it was $2,100 in British Columbia for a 3-bedroom house. And now people would die for that price, but he got attacked all over social media for listing it.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll play a little devil's advocate. I mean, in some markets like ours here in Calgary, I think a landlord within, you know, could stretch a little bit, can gouge a bit, you know. Definitely a landlord can gouge more than Galen Weston of Loblaws can. You know, all those if Galen tries to sell his oranges for $20 more than Walmart, nobody's going to buy it.
Yeah, nobody's going to buy it.
The landlord in Calgary has a bit of wiggle room right now.
I suppose.
For sure.
I suppose that's true.
Yeah.
I wanted to show this actually, because you made me think of this. I posted this meme on the communities tab, but this is a lady. It says, I wrote back in my day, a woman with $20 of groceries before going home to her $15,000 house in 1980. And this is a bit of testament to just how bad it's gotten since the 1980s. People, you know, complain about, well, you know, back in my day it was really tough, it was really hard, but realistically, you could buy a house within a few years of moving into it and pay it outright.
You totally could. And I mean, I'd love to find that basket of goods. Like, what do you think that box of cornflakes was worth in 1980? Because I know that same box of cornflakes today is like $7.99.
Yeah, crazy. Like, we don't even buy cereal in this house. It's just too funny.
I bet you that was under $1. Yeah, cool. Well, actually, you know, if we got a minute, I mean, I had an interesting tweet this week. Somebody else made a comment. Somebody else said that they would prefer to take, or maybe we talked about it last week, but they would prefer to take an 18% interest rate on a $15,000 house versus a 6% interest rate on a current $500,000 house. And I was doing the math and going, it's actually, it's almost a valid statement, because 18% on a somebody just came home in my house and there's a bunch of dogs, but 18% on a $15,000 house. Somebody doesn't want to talk me, or doesn't want me to talk about rent. Anyways, 15% or 18% on a $15,000 house would be sort of a smaller percentage of your take-home pay, because we took home so much pay in the 1980s, right? We weren't taxed to death and so forth. So I did the math and I put out a tweet on there, and it's not that crazy of a comment. Now, what is crazy is if current interest rates continue to get past the 6, 7, 8%, then Canadians are going to be in real trouble. And back to one of the original, you know, things we talked about at the very beginning of the show, I think life is going to get harder for Canadians for the next year for sure, maybe even longer. We haven't seen the worst of, there's
No.
not a lot of good indicators out there. This minuscule drop in the consumer price index, that's nothing. That's just a temporary, it's still higher than it should be. Interest rates are going up, mortgages, rental.
Well, and it's an illusion. It's an illusion that's enabling the government to continue with the strategy that they had that got us here. So
Yeah,
if anything, it's going to exacerbate the whole situation, these illusory numbers, because it's just going to make it worse because it'll give them more opportunity to screw up more.
totally. And I'm trying to figure out how to benefit from this, but I don't know. I don't see it because I've often and
It's more about hedging.
be,
It's more about hedging any
yeah, yeah. Well,
savings that
people are
you've
going to say,
got.
Boulanger, you're cruel. No, I'm not cruel. I mean, it is life, right? One person's misfortune is another person's good luck, and that is life. So we're all at different cycles in life, and if there's a way to my taking advantage of this right now is I need a used car for my kids. So am I going to be benefiting by being able to buy a used car? I don't know. So I'm always looking for ways to don't always just accept the negative. If something's happening, find the way to benefit from what's happening. That's all I'm saying.
What I would say, if on the used car market, if they do go through with all of this environmental stuff, making sure that the 20% of all cars by 2025 have to be electric, it will
Yeah,
flood the used market. So buy used cars now, buy a bunch of them.
yeah.
You'll be able to sell them at a massive profit when the demand goes way up. I guarantee that. And buy an auto garage because they'll be fixing them too. I did one statistic that I thought was really funny that we discovered today. I was talking with one of the guys that I research with. Did you know that there's only 45,200 certified mechanics in Canada?
45,200 mechanics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know how many lawyers there are?
Oh, more than that. No,
136,000.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised.
There's only 96,000 doctors.
I mean, think about how many lawyer shows are on TV. We glorify. I've always discouraged people that I know who want to go into becoming a lawyer because it's been glorified on television. And I always say, you're gonna do wills, you're gonna do bullshit contracts, you're gonna do supply chain management in an oil company if you're a lawyer. Most lawyers do not end up pleading cases in front of a judge, but that's the perception. And actually, man, like I said earlier, we could talk about any subject. I mean, somebody this week made a derogatory comment. Was it one of the ministers? Somebody made a derogatory comment towards the trades. An elitist comment again that university is better and it was okay. We're gonna have to dig it, but maybe it was Poilievre or somebody said we should promote people going into the trades, and then somebody else came back going, "Oh, great! So we'll." They spun it in a negative way. Like how you can, it's exactly to your point. We're short on mechanics, electricians, whatever.
Doctors.
We're definitely not short on and we're definitely not short on lawyers. And somebody promoting the trades,
nurses.
Maybe they said something like lowering the barrier to get into the trades. I don't know what they said, but somebody took it in a negative way. And then all of a sudden I saw this whole thread going by of people being negative towards the trades, which is bullshit. Trades are extremely valuable and are an extremely most tradespeople I know get into a positive net worth scenario in their personal lives way faster than any doctor or any lawyer I've ever known.
Yep. And we book at least 3 weeks out. So if you think negatively of the trades, go fix your own car. Have fun with that. By all means, because in a few years we'll be booking a lot more than 3 years out.
Now you're in this business. Is an EV repairman going to become something? Is that going to evolve into a trade? Do you think there's going to be is it just going to be a specialty within automotive mechanic, or do you see a future where
I work on EVs? I can do them.
You work on EVs? Yeah.
I can't wait until we have a lot of EVs on the road because they're nice to work on.
They're cleaner.
Yeah.
Not a whole bunch of rusted parts.
Yeah.
And
they have their dangers and stuff, and you gotta watch out for that. But
Well, yeah, no, I worked. I'm showing people my iron ring, and there's a spot weld on my iron ring. So electrical is very dangerous. I was once disconnecting a battery inside a boat, and I was holding the wrench, and my ring was touching the wrench. And when I disconnecting the pole, I ground it out to the water, and it zapped me hard. And I used that as a lesson because I subsequently, then that was early in my career. Later on, every time I worked on electrical stuff, disconnecting batteries is still to this day one of the things that scares the shit out of me. And disconnecting a big battery on a Tesla, I'd be like, I ain't touching that one. You disconnect
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I'm certified to do so, so I'll be the one to do it, and I'm happy
Right
to do
on,
it.
right on,
All right,
right
Marty,
on.
tell everybody, where can they find you on the internet?
Well, you can find me at Marty Up North for another on Twitter and on YouTube, but only for another week because next week I'll be on the show next week, but I'm taking off for a 10-day adventure on August 4th. So, yeah,
I'm
Marty
looking
Up North
forward to
on
the
Twitter
show
and
when you
YouTube.
get back from that, because we're gonna have a lot to talk about.
I hope not.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. We'll make sure the links are
All
in the
right, bud.
description down below. Go check out Marty and his adventures over on his channel and his adventures in Twitterland, now known as X. Anyway, we'll see you in the next
Bye.
one.
Good as always, man. Good chat tonight. Awesome.
Cheers.